And our presentation today is called Making It Work. Next slide, please. Making It Work, on the ground strategies for family engagement and behavioral health access. So like to you mentioned, we're from different agencies. If you can go to the next slide, you'll see, if you don't see our little faces on the squares, here it is on the slides, and we'll be presenting today. Go ahead and next slide. So we're going to cover four different points. We're going to do a quick grounding with family and community engagement foundations. We'll share some strategies for communication plan. We're going to tie it together with FACE and MTSS strategies, and we'll finish up with a district spotlight on what one school and one district has been doing to kind of bring everything together for you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the FACE 101. Okay, so for many of you, you're familiar with the MTSS framework. Next slide. And this is a one pager that you can find. Next slide, please. Yeah, so you're probably very familiar with this one pager. And, Diana and Janice and I represent the family and community engagement domain, and we live and breathe this every day. So we're going to just do a little grounding here. This document is linked on the slide for you. We're not going to open it up today, but if you were to open up the document and just you scroll down to the family and community engagement section, you'll find this quote that is going to be displayed here on the next slide. And it says, when families, community members, and schools form partnerships in which each benefit from and supports the others, the local culture supports and sustains equity within a school. So you can see here, the key word that we want to emphasize today is partnerships. And so we're going to dive a little bit deeper into partnerships. So I have a question for you. Next slide, please. All right. If you remember, maybe you can just take a look at the question here. Which of these are features for trusting community partnerships? Play along with me and put in your answer into the chat. Is it A, identify mutual interests and goals? B, maintain an open door policy? Letter C, both A and B? Or D, none of the above? Okay, a lot of responses here for C, and you guys are quick too. That is correct. Yeah, so it's really clear here. A and B identify mutual interests and goals, and maintaining an open door policy just really emphasizes the need to be relational when we, think about how we are interacting with our community partners and also our families. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's think about family partnerships. Here are some descriptions of trusting family partnerships. Is it A, facilitating home and school communication? B, providing information? C, obtain input and feedback? Or is it D, all of the above? Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for playing along. Next slide. Yeah, it's all of these. So with respect to family partnerships, we not only do we want to be relational, we also want to be very intentional, right, about how we communicate with them. Okay, last question on the next slide. Here's a bit of trivia. The family and community engagement domain that was in the MTSS framework is grounded in the California Department of Education's Family Engagement Toolkit. Is this true or false? Okay. All right, very good. Next slide. Yeah, so the Family Engagement Toolkit. So what is this? So much like how our subject area teachers and our colleagues adhere to content standards, family engagement practitioners also refer to the CDE's Family Engagement Framework and their toolkit. So this toolkit was published in 2017, and it has guidelines for foundations, establishing a district family engagement team, how to create a vision statement, learning and assessing needs of families, and very specifically, the process of continuous improvement. Next slide. One important concept in this family engagement framework is the dual capacity building framework for family school partnerships. So you'll see here, this diagram illustrates a coming together. You have here the challenges for educators and then also for families. But the idea is that we're building capacity together, forming a true partnership and building capacity as it's described here in the process conditions and organizational conditions. If you take a look at the next slide, I've enlarged it a little bit so you can see better. And you'll see that in the descriptions here that the process and organizational conditions are, again, relational and intentional. I'll give you a minute to read over this list. So next slide. So it's not a surprise to us that family engagement efforts fit seamlessly within MTSS because of its focus on relationships and intentional structures. And here's an article that was shared, that we're sharing with everyone here, that calls out, some specific examples of how to structure MTSS, or family engagement into MTSS. Next slide. And this article also recommends 4 different actions. And Diana is going to be sharing a little bit about the communication aspect. And also Janice will be sharing about how do we specifically partner with families. So that's all for the Foundations 101. I'm going to turn the time now to Diana.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That was great. I like the trivia. All right, next slide. And just a little bit about me. I've come full circle. I've been in communications for over 20 years, started at the County of Orange, at the airport, then went over to higher education as their public relations manager, and then went over to K-12 as the director of communications. And now I'm here at California's Dedicated to Education Foundation. And I am co-leading the Family and Community Engagement Initiative. So I'm happy to be here. I'm going to talk about the importance of communications and setting your communications plans. Next slide, please. All right. So everything we do for families begins with how we communicate. Trust is not built in one meeting, it's built through every interaction, every phone call, every note home. And so sensitive topics like behavioral health and insurance require extra care because families are making decisions for their children. And I recently read in an article that said schools are often the front door to mental health support for kids. And this is so true, right? Like you see educators and leadership, people are seeing these students come through. And so they're able to pinpoint, if something is wrong. So that just really resonated with me and felt the need to call it out. And also remembering that your school employees, they're the bridge between families and services. So how they show up does matter. And so right here, the foundation of communication, again, is going back to Dr. Mapp's dual capacity framework, building trust, right? That consistent messaging, how you communicate and getting that in order. And then the difference between internal and external communication. So I'm not going to go over all of the bullet points because I'll let you read them, but I am going to just give you the overall message, right? And with this slide, I'm going to leave you with this old saying that I think still rings true today. Every family deserves to be approached with the same care that you would want for your own family, child, or nieces, nephews, whatever it is. So just keeping that in mind as we're working with our families and our students. Next slide, please. All right, this is really important here. The internal communications piece, right? Getting your teams aligned. And this is really important because before you can communicate well with your families, your team has to be aligned internally. Um, Everyone needs to be using the same language, tone, talking points from the front office to the counselor to the nurse. It's important to be aligned on how you're going to approach whatever, if it's your mission, your values, or if you're talking about behavioral health or mental health, how you're going to show up for your families and your students. It's important that you know internally, because let me tell you, parents will know if there's confusion internally, there's going to be confusion externally. So it's really important that you look inward when you are thinking about a communications plan and how you're going to tackle this, this initiative, program, or subject. Um, so I often say confusion inside the building becomes confusion for families outside of it. This means bringing in the right people to the table. I think a lot of, in my experience, there's been a lot of districts or school sites that forget that there's support, right? And they forget to invite people who are running your community schools or your MTSS or communications for the district. County offices of education as well. There's always support around that you can always call on and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Like, do you have any samples? Because most of the time you don't have to duplicate efforts. As a former communications director, I always have to just remind, if you do have a communications department, talk to them. They can help you build out a campaign and give you some best practices, looking at the just looking at simplified language and knowing your demographics, right? And what those preferred methods of communication are. But really considering these groups and these contacts, so that you make it the best, and you have the information that you need readily, and you can reduce confusion and unify the message, and creating space also for training for our employees is really important, because that's where you can really come up with the language that you want to share. And then also just a unified team sends a unified, trustworthy message, right? And so we doing this and being okay in-house and really solid is going to help you build that trust externally. People can sense it, people can feel it. Next slide, please. Now we're going to focus on external communication and just meeting families where they are. A couple of points here is leading every conversation with empathy and without judgment. Families can feel they're being processed versus truly seen, right? So it's not transactional. It's really taking the time, giving that eye contact and saying, hey, this is our plan. This is what I see. And really co-creating with our families. They feel the love and they feel the support, as opposed when it's transactional. I have kids in the K-12 system, proud parent, but I've had both, and I can tell you that it makes me feel a lot better to know that I'm connecting with someone versus someone who's just like next, kind of a line in the DMV, just, where you're going to check off a mark. So really being intentional about that. And then one conversation is a starting point and not the finish line. So keep showing up, keep having those reoccurring conversations, dropping the jargon that comes up all of the time, a plain, accessible language that builds trust. Like clinical or insurance terminology can shut families down. It's really, what do we need the families to know? And very easy terms, and how can we support you? Where do you need to call, right? Super brief, that goes a long way. And then just knowing your families, you can tailor your approach to their comfort level and then language preference and communication style. I did link a script, a sample script there that you can customize to your audience needs based on your internal conversations and final talking points. But just starting points, like for example, script number one would be, how to start an initial conversation. And it's like, "Hi, Miss Meza. Thank you for your time today. I want to make sure your family knows about the behavioral health services and insurance coverage available for your child. Can we take a few minutes to look at what's available at no cost to you," or whatever that message is. But these are sample messages that you can tailor. And then just offering support beyond the conversation, helping families complete forms or having translators ready and following up are some key points that would really benefit with the communications component. And with that, I can open it up if you have any questions. This is it for my piece. You can put it in the chat, or we can talk about it after the presentation's over. But thank you so much for your time and for listening. I'll hand it over to, I believe, Janice.
Uh, Hi, everyone. My name is Janice, and I'm with Orange County Department of Education. I see some friends here too from Orange County or other County Office of Ed, Family and Community Engagement staff as well. So I'm really happy that we're joining in this meeting. I will go to the next slide too. What I'm going to talk about now is how do the work of the capacity grant and family engagement, knowing that's all under the umbrella of MTSS, but how are we going to think about working together? And so I have a little bit of a story to tell you about how I came onto the conversation too. But let's first look at the next slide that reminds us of this great image of tiered systems of support. So again, it's going to come from this article of Better Together. So we're trying to help everyone see that family engagement, like Jamie shared with us, is a huge component of MTSS. Now let's talk about how it is going to be tiered, especially with partnering with families in problem solving, which is where we're going to be thinking about going with the billing, with your fee schedules, with communication. We need to be thinking about partnering. So the next slide is going to be this great image. Is everybody hearing me okay too? I still see Diana. So I just want to make sure that if those that want to see have more than just my voice, but that's okay too. We can work through this. So in this image that you can see, it's really comparing a tiered system of support, which we normally talk about interventions when it comes to helping our students, maybe in our special education program, like an IEP, or maybe behavioral. But how does this relate to family engagement? So you'll see some words here, the verbs that are the beginning of each bullet for the tiers. So tier one, you're going to see verbs like get to know the families, develop a system of communication. These verbs are very universal. They're very, I would say, not systematic quite yet. They're very introductory, right? A very common tier one practice when it comes to family engagement. So some of us in our districts are probably at a tier one with family engagement. We send newsletters. For me personally, as a parent, I got this big, huge form during my registration with my child to ask for my insurance. So I was communicated one way. I was told I need to share my insurance, but didn't really understand why. Um, a little bit of curiosity there, like how much are you going to be tracking? Am I comfortable sharing this insurance information? These were the feelings I had as a parent, right? Because I was just having that one-way communication of this universal communication saying we need to know your insurance information, but not quite understanding why. Now, if you go to tier two, you're going to see verbs like provide families with written understanding, so more communication. sharing the progress quarterly, maybe, of how it's going with your family and your students. So there's not just a beginning of the year communication and a parent teacher conference communication, but more communication where we're really starting to standardize how we are partnering with our families. Some of our districts might be here, which is awesome to think about how they're working with families. And then we get to a tier 3 intervention where you have families that are really providing and receiving multiple formats of receiving communication. They're having constant encouragement. They're believed to be amazing partners for their child, that it's not just the schools doing everything on their own, but we are together, we are in this together. And really, like, now we're talking very consistently. So you'll notice the last bullet for tier 3 is you're sharing progress monitoring consistently, like monthly. And the families know exactly what's happening with their child. And then they become a partner. They can share in decision making. They can come to your cost team and understand what's happening. They feel more confident. That's what we want to see, and we're hoping to see the shifts with family and community engagement and how it is aligned to MTSS, but is very much a tiered format as well. I'm sharing all this because if you go to the next slide, this is where I am super, super grateful. I have Mayu at my county office of ed. She's in charge of the mental health and this program, the fee scheduling. And I'm with family engagement. And we came together because I started to learn about, as a parent, I experienced that this year of asking about my insurance. And I was like, can I understand more about this? As a coordinator for family and community engagement, I wanted to understand, could my FACE liaison start maybe becoming the wellness coaches who could start doing and providing this opportunities for supplemental income to come back into the schools? And so I had a lot of questions. And together, we've come up with this presentation that her and she actually came to my network meeting, which is very common for a position of family and community engagement. A lot of county office of eds will do a network meeting where they bring schools together with community partners and they share about what's happening and what resources are available. So if this is new to you, of hearing about what family engagement is and what the role of a county office of ed FACE person, staff member does, I really encourage you to reach out to them. And vice versa. If you're on this call, I know some of my family engagement friends are on this call, find out who is in charge of the capacity grant, because there is going to be greatness when you work together. Because, like what the screen says, we are creating the intentional system that we want to do with families and not to families. So that's our ask of you as you walk away today. We're going to be in breakout rooms in a little while too, where we can share maybe what you're doing, of how can we partner with our families, because of, let me show you the next screen, which is the case study of what Anaheim has been sharing. So I'm really, really grateful to share the article. It's actually a memo. So it is posted on the capacity grant website too. If we could go to the next slide. And if you're looking at the presentation, it is linked as well. But there has been amazing growth within one of our districts in Orange County. And you might have this as well. And this is just one that I could reference for you to read at a later time too. So high five if you're doing something like this already. But Anaheim Elementary School District really was intentional about, not only were they cohort 1 of being a part of how do we set up this system for the fee schedule and asking our families about the health insurance information, but they also too did a fabulous job in this article sharing their reflections and their recommendations. So yes, they are now able to bill over $800,000 back to their school system because of the system that they've put in place of being able to use the fee schedule of wellness coaches, possibly community health workers too. I might be not saying that correctly, but I do know positively they are using the certified wellness coaches. Now, when I went to Mayu, who again is my capacity grant person at my county office of ed, I read this, heard about this, and I said, well, how can my family liaisons become wellness coaches? Because they are helping families get access to services. So is that a billable thing? And this is where Mayu came back and shared with me some slides. So let's go to the next slide too. And she shared the recommendation that's coming from Anaheim, which is we are let the capacity grant do their role of creating the systems of, how do we do the certified health wellness coaches, how do we create maybe someone that is going to be doing the billing, because that they have to be trained and they have to use certain software, whatever the district decides to do. But she said, Janice, as a family and community engagement coordinator, I need help in helping communicate to the families of why we are asking for this information. Because the more the more information you can get of families sharing their health information, the easier you can bill. And so that's why Anaheim has been so successful, is because they realized that. And they found that the first round, the families weren't comfortable sharing that information. So they partnered with Cal Optima, which is one of our local Medi-Cal providers, and also to having a tracking system of who did not complete the health information as a family, and can we call them and say, hey, can we let you know about how you sharing your health information is going to help support mental health services in our schools for a long period of time. And this will not cause you copays. It is not determined. It will not be affected by, we don't share that information with any type of citizenship conversations. And so that process is what made Anaheim so successful. They took that special person that they realized in the system that they needed to modify, and they went back to the families. So imagine how successful your county office of ed, your districts, your sites can be when they preempt and they tell the families ahead of time, this is why we're doing it, this is how it's going to affect you. And no matter what, your child is still going to receive mental health services, because that's what we provide in our schools. We love your school, we love your children, and we want to partner with you. If you're comfortable, here is how to share your information. And when Mayu helped me understand that, I said, yay, thank you so much. Now I know how I can partner with you to support this work, being a believer and wanting to support it. So Mayu came recently, and these are her slides of how she helped me with tools that I then shared with all of my family and community engagement directors, family liaisons who came to a recent meeting. So now you have access to them too. And really asking you to reflect on, when I see these tools, I'd like you to reflect on, how am I building the capacity, not of the families right now, but of my staff, to know how to start being intentional, like Diana was saying, about communicating this work with our families. So know that on this presentation, you have access to 3 simple slides. Videos. So you're more than welcome to come back and look at these. But I do know that the state has spent a lot of time in thinking about how can we communicate. So this might be new to you. Some of you might have seen these videos before as well. But I do ask that you watch these when you have time, to see how to simply explain. I think this could be really used July, August on your social media platforms, helping our families know, hey, we're about to go into the start of school. Please know this is why we are going to be also too asking for your insurance. And then, really think about, what do you need to say that will help your families feel comfortable in understanding why you're asking it. I know when we ask for confidential information, when we use terms like social services, it is going to make our families not feel comfortable due to everything that's been happening. So what are words that you need to use that will help our families feel comfortable in sharing? That's relationship building, that's trusting, that's asset based, that's everything that Jamie shared with you earlier, of part of building our framework for being very intentional about how we're partnering with our families, so they don't feel like we're doing it to them, but they feel like we're doing it with them. Okay, so there's some short videos for you. I'm going to go to the next slide because I really appreciated how this was explained. Being someone outside of the world of the capacity grant, I needed to understand more about what was this program, right? And so simple terms were used to explain too that this is not something new. Or like I was told too, like our students are still going to receive these services, but it's the fact that we're trying to create a sustainable system where our schools will not be grant based if they receive mental health services, but be able to make it part of the system. So if you want to use a slide like this when you're working with your staff or thinking about how to build the supports for your families, I really encourage something like this too, that it's not new, but it's something that we're maybe putting more intentionality on the planning of it. And then linked where it says see here is obviously going to be too about those rates of service if you needed to explain that to any more of your staff too. So the next slide, though, is where you're going to receive, and hopefully this is not new to you, but for someone, if you're going to share it with someone like me in family and community engagement at your county office of ed, can you go to the next slide, please? I would really, this slide that Mayu created for me was very, very helpful. This slide and the next slide, which was the messaging for families. So use these short, simple statements as you're talking to the families. I see Diana nodding her head like, yep, this is what we need to be doing. Especially talking about the cost and any type of tracking or connection to the family that would have them feel uncomfortable. The next slide is going to be tools that can help you with direct communication to the family. So they, your capacity grant has already made brochures and flyers, but look at the last two, which are actually parent-teacher conference scripts. So imagine that you're going to work with your principals and ask your principals to allow the teachers to think about how could they use a little bit of time during a parent-teacher conference or hopefully these monthly meetings with some communication, but having that script, because if you think about it, the teacher is going to be very, very, very low down on, if you want to call it the totem pole of understanding what this is all about, right? Their world is the classroom. And so to ask them to all of a sudden explain this fee schedule or explain why we're asking our families to share about insurance information, they might not feel comfortable. And so building the capacity of the teacher is also too gratefully, it's very, I would say, impactful, but also too beneficial, because when you ask parents, the person that they're going to listen to or trust the most, usually who they go to the most to is going to be that teacher. And so hearing it from the teacher is going to be very different than reading it in an email from a principal on a weekly email that they send, right? So I really do appreciate how the capacity grant has built all of these tools to really think about how to partner with the family so they feel like they're being, I'm going to say it one more time, right? That they're get to partner with us, that we're doing it with them, not to them. So we wanted to give you some of these tools. And now, as we go to the next slide, we are hoping that in the time that we have here together with you this is where some of the best learning can happen, when you get to share with each other. So we all shared like, yay, this is the plan for everything, right? This is the tools that are available, but you probably want to say, well, I need to ask a couple more questions, or maybe I want to share about something great that I'm doing. Or you want to ask more about these tools that we just shared with you. So what we'd like to do in the time that we have right now is to allow some more conversation. So we are going to go in breakout rooms as well. We'll join you, but we'd like you to think about this question. How will you use the communication tools shared to help families feel like they're partnering to be able to provide more services for their children? How are you going to use the tools? How are you going to share what we've talked about so that the families are comfortable and they're feeling like you're doing it with them? Okay, so I like our tech support. They have been awesome. They are going to open up the breakout rooms. We're going to be in these breakout rooms for about I think we're about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll come back. We will have all of this being broadcasted to you in the breakout room as well. Please stay as we come back, because you're going to hear some best practices. I know I've got some powerful districts here that are probably going to be sharing what they've been doing too. So come back, and then we have some final thoughts and resources to share with you as well.